What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and if you're enjoying the content that I'm uploading onto my channel, then feel free to subscribe, and you can also offer suggestions on topics and characters and storylines and whatnot that we can have discussions on later on in this channel.
The son of Superman is like the best thing coming out of DC Rebirth right now. Like, it really is. It's the best thing coming out of DC Rebirth. And the reason why is because this story is so fun. It's some of the most fun I've ever had reading a comic book in like any form or fashion, because like it focuses almost entirely on Jonathan Kent. And that's something that we haven't really had yet, right? I mean, we've had stories where he's been like alongside Superman, and it's kind of cool because we get to learn about the Superman mythos through the eyes of his son, you know, where they talk about the costume that he wears and how, you know, the blue and the red costume is designed to inspire hope, that kind of thing. The black costume was designed to reflect where Superman was, that he was operating in the shadows, but it's always been Jonathan alongside Superman. That's one of the reasons why people are looking so forward to Super Sons, which, by the way, I don't know if you guys have read it yet, but Super Sons is the best thing coming out of DC Rebirth right now. It's insanely good. I read issue number 1 and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's so cool. Damian Wayne is amazing. In any event, you know, with this story, it's really kind of funny because it picks up with Jonathan Kent, like, watching scary movies, right? And like, he's eating ice cream and he's just having like a great time to himself because, of course, you know, as we could tell, like, Superman's gone, Lois Lane is out of town. We don't really know where they are. Like, we're just kind of left to assume that they're on their date night or something along those lines. We don't really know. But then his friend Kathy rings the doorbell and scares the absolute hell out of him, which, by the way, I've been down that road. Like, am I the only one who will like go through and turn off all the lights in each room leading up to like your bedroom? And then like you turn off the lights in your bedroom and then just like race to your bed before death consumes you? Like, I do that. I'm not ashamed to admit it. There's no shame in my game. I'm not ashamed to admit it. 32 years old and I still do that. Don't judge me. Don't even think about judging me. So anyway, the cool thing about this is that, again, this is just kind of one of these circumstances where Tomasi plays it fast and loose with us, right? I mean, over the course of this story, we're going to kind of have to ask ourselves, is it their imaginations running away with them, or are things actually happening? And that's why it's so cool, but we'll kind of cross that bridge when we get to it. What we find out is that the reason why Kathy's here is because her cow, Bessie, had basically, you know, wandered out. The fence had opened up, or Bessie just, you know, for one reason or another, Bessie got away, and the result is that her grandfather went to go look for Bessie the cow, and just hasn't really reported back since. He's been gone for a couple hours. Now, of course, this is one of those funny little situations because it's just like, it's flimsy at best. You know, it's just one of those flimsy little things, just a reason to give us the story. But that's the cool thing about it, is it's just a reason to give us the story. I don't care why Bessie the cow got out. I'm just happy to see a story about Jonathan Kent. But of course, once they make their way, I guess, kind of following the tracks of Bessie and the tracks of her grandfather, they end up running into Dead Man's Swamp. This is kind of the cool thing, is because we've seen Dead Man's Swamp before, right? I mean, we saw Dead Man's Swamp earlier in comics, but it was in the daytime. And as we all know, the monsters come out at night. I mean, that's just how it is. Like, monsters always come out at night, hence the reason why you're always safer turning off the lights in the room that you're leaving instead of turning off the light in the room while you're there, because then the monsters will get you. So the idea here is that once they make their way and start kind of poking around, there's suddenly this giant shadow man in the distance. Now, this is why I say we kind of have to ask the question, is it really their imaginations? Because once they take off into the swamp, then crazy things start to happen. This giant shadow man is, you know, looks like a legit monster. But when it comes to people hallucinating, one person hallucinating something is fear. 2 people is an actual thing. And so it's just like, okay, like there's an actual monster chasing them. I mean, I'd be hard pressed to believe they're both hallucinating the same thing at the same time. But the funny thing about this too is, remember, this, like, Jonathan's just a little kid, and that's why it works so well, because we think about this and we're like, well, Jonathan Kent, he's the son of Superman. Like, why doesn't he just grab Kathy and they just fly away? Well, sure, if he was Superman, he would. If he was Superman, he would just fly away, but he's not. He's a little boy. And as we know, when we're kids, our imaginations run wild. That's one of the greatest aspects of being a kid, but one of the most terrifying aspects of being a kid. When you're a kid, the world is your oyster. You can dream up these incredible flights of fancy and allow your dreams to sort of take you on these wild adventures and get caught up in this situation. But the bad thing is that your imagination begins to seize control, and then you start to realize that sometimes your imagination is evil. Like, sometimes it's bad. Sometimes your imagination is just bad, and it just makes you see bad things. But this is when I say that this is kind of where the line's being blurred, because as they're making their way through Dead Man's Swamp, suddenly they're grabbing onto these tree branches that are massive in size. They're being chased by these owls that are twice their size. size. They're jumping on turtles that are 4 times their size. And so it's like, okay, either they're shrinking or things are getting bigger. And that's why I say it's really kind of a funny situation, because it's the question that we have to ask, is something happening here? Is it really just like Dead Man's Swamp is just this crazy thing and their hallucinations are running wild? Or is there something really going on in the swamp? Now, of course, with Jonathan Kent able to tap into a few of his powers here and there, of course, he uses his X-ray vision to discover a house and they end up traveling to it. But that's something that I also want to focus on here. Keep in mind, when it comes to Jonathan, he does not have full control of his faculties when it comes to his powers. He can't just fly. He can't just use his heat vision. It usually responds to emotion. And that's one of the crazy things about it, is because in a heightened state like this, his powers may sort of run awry, but it's not something that he can just readily do. But the funny thing is, once they get inside this house, well, then the house starts moving. The house starts rocking back and forth. The ground begins disappearing under their feet as they're running up the stairs. Again, we get these crazy situations. Now, of course, they eventually stumble across Bessie the cow. And there are 2 questions that have to be asked here. Bessie, what is your problem? And 2, why is Bessie in a house? Like, why did Bessie lead them on this wild goose chase? And I want to know why Bessie's in the house, because this is ridiculous. But then, of course, Bessie stands on her hind legs, starts mooing, blowing out sand. I mean, it's all these crazy things that are happening around them. Then, of course, this 50-foot monster makes his presence known, ripping the top off the house. And so suddenly they basically kind of take off down a well, really just kind of keep themselves safe, hiding down the well, hoping the monster will pass. And that's what makes this so cool. It's because this is just an adorable moment. You've got this kid with basically powers that will one day manifest to the point that he will be, a god among gods. But then you look at him and he's just like hiding out in a well, because he's like, is the monster gone? Is it gone? Like, is it still there? Like, it's just this hilarious little moment with his character, and again, of course, we eventually see the grandfather of Kathy popping up and like, what in the world's going on with you kids? And we kind of get this half-hearted explanation of, well, you guys can't go into Dead Man's Swamp because it emits these gases that cause hallucinations. So it's kind of Tomasi and the guys saying, hey, look, it's just one of these fun little adventurous things, with little kids where their imagination runs wild and their imagination is compounded by hallucinations caused by the gases in the swamp and so on and so forth. And so, of course, we basically have, the grandfather of Kathy taking her back home and then Jonathan Kent heading back to his home. But then when we end up having, Clark Kent, when we have Superman and Lois Lane return home, checking on their son to make sure he's safe, we end up finding out there is actually something out there. Everything that Jonathan experienced was real. Someone out there basically had the ability to manipulate the reality around him. And there's only one person that I could think of that could do that. With that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. If you guys are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like. And yeah, this is just a fun little story. That's really all this is. I mean, it's not meant to be taken too seriously. It's like one of these little filler issues that we get. For those of you guys who are new to comic books, whenever there are story arcs that end up getting launched, we'll usually see like filler issues that are thrown in here and there between like major story arcs. And what that does is it gives the writers a reprieve. It gives them a chance to not go from like one story arc to the next. It gives them a chance to sort of relax and to regain their bearings and to kind of chill out for a little while. It just kind of gives them a chance to basically wind down. But the other half of this is, of course, as we know, Reborn is going to be the next Superman story. So this is really fun because it's just kind of a great way to segue. Because keep in mind, with DC Rebirth, it was one thing when we were starting off DC Rebirth because it was like, hey guys, here's the adventure, here's the fun, here's the joy and everything. But now we're getting down to crunch time. Now we're getting down to brass taxes. And we're getting to the point where the stories are going to start getting a little more serious. They're going to start getting a little more intense. The fun will still be there, but some more serious tones are going to start being worked into these stories. And when that happens, we're going to want to make sure that we also have these moments of reprieve, these fun little tidbits that get thrown in, these little goodies that help to sort of offset the not really darker, but the more serious tones of the stories as we're going to be seeing them progress throughout DC Rebirth. But yeah, guys, we're going to go ahead and bring this video to an end, and I will catch you all later. Peace.